Leo's let thingy, so I have to, that's why I have to do this. Like, I talked to him. I said, what do you mean you don't like it?
At Folio's checks.
No, the owner statement. And I said, well, do you want a rent roll? What do you want? What do you need? So that he can get this damn loan.
Oh, he's getting a loan.
Yeah. They didn't like how Appfolio set stuff up.
Oh, I've seen that. Because it's like Sam Elliott's timing. I watched that for a couple episodes.
It's so naturally him though. I feel like it's not even like a script for him.
Yeah, I think the way he talks is him, but it doesn't work for comedy, because you're like.
Oh, see, it's still my grandpa, like that is.
Is your mom?
So much.
Is this just 12 to 1?
They still had his last name. Yeah, they still have. They haven't received it yet.
Can you record this? It is being recorded.
It's recording right now.
Not very Christian like. Yeah, I think I'll do it.
Cindy wants to
She can log in on the Zoom.
is not available.
Okay.
She said she's on. There's no parking, so tell her good luck with that. I'm backed in.
Yeah. Hi, how are you? Nope. Okay, we're gonna get started, guys. We are waiting here. If you want to sit there so I can see how that looks.
Do you want me back there with Carolyn?
Yep.
Okay.
And then we're waiting on Janice too, so I'm trying to figure out.
Really?
Maybe if you
Yes.
scoot this a little ways, and then you scoot that a little ways, and then we'll put Janice.
chair and you want me to move?
Yes.
Something smells really good. I think it's got that salad.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can come over. Come over.
Okay, we
See
don't
us
care
go
about.
down
Oh, there's
here.
Mackenzie. Hi, Mackenzie.
That smell, it smells like Mexican food. I'm having Jones right now. Jones.
It's kind of appropriate that crazy is flashing above you.
What's that?
I'll turn that.
The crazy is flashing above you.
Okay.
Appropriate.
We are crazy. That's appropriate.
That's why, yeah, that's why that's why it's above you guys.
It's appropriate.
Very much so.
I just want a T-Rex costume.
Mackenzie says hi.
I feel really important right now.
Okay, so we're gonna get started.
Or a Velociraptor, I think that's what it was.
T-Rex would be better.
On my Facebook, there's a guy walking around downtown. And he says, Carolyn, I could totally see you doing this.
We're gonna get started.
New York or somewhere.
Mom, we're gonna get started. So,
Well, I'm talking business here.
I know, but we're gonna be able to pick you up on the microphone and the people online are not gonna be able to hear. So, okay, so today we're gonna get started with, so the topic today is new construction. So we have three ladies, as soon as Janice shows up, that I know have done a lot of new construction, both on the buying and selling end. Today, what we're gonna be talking about is new construction on when you're representing the buyer. And the reason we're talking about this is why, do you think? Because read the first statement, although it's not as legible as I'd like to be.
More licenses in Alaska when they're available homes.
Yeah,
Everybody's starting to turn to new construction because there's no options.
right. Like that is one way that we talked about when Wayne came, we talked about how we could create inventory. I might have shared some of Carolyn's secret insider tricks. She wasn't here. But like there's a lot of other things, like
Networking.
Oh, no.
First, like one of the things that they talked about is people that chose to exercise like the forbearance. Those people coming out of forbearance, not knowing if they're going to be able to catch their mortgage up, that would be a great source of potential listings right now. What are some of the other ideas we threw out? Hi there. We have a seat for you up front.
I always get the end of the table.
No, you're at the.
Oh, no, you're.
Knocking on
Spotlight.
doors, networking,
I mean,
thinking outside the box.
what does that mean? That those are like
So,
all very.
so you used my
ambiguous-
secret. So a potential buyer calls me and says, I want new construction. And there's none, because they're moving up and they need it in a month. And so I started calling builders. What do you got? What do you got? What do you got? I had a house sold in 35 minutes.
Because you're looking for like potential properties that were either deals were falling through, because deals.
And
are
that's
still
what
falling
happened.
through.
Deal was falling through and
The other one we talked about is there's a lot of times you'll see properties that the builder's agent did not switch it from to be built to under construction.
that was what I was looking
I've been
for.
guilty of that many times. and
That's
there
what I
are
was
like
looking for.
somebody calling saying, like, when are they gonna start construction? I'm like, hey, that house is cheap, or
Almost done.
whatever.
Yeah.
We
You
sold
know?
that one.
Yeah, we sold that two weeks ago.
So new construction is definitely a route you can go, like when we're lacking inventory. Where else can we go?
You can knock on doors and say,
Door
hey, I got a
knocking.
buyer that wants to live in this neighborhood.
I literally
Right.
had somebody go to my house while I was gone and bring a basket and information to my husband.
Oh, that's funny. That's hysterical.
It
Well,
was
it's funny
pretty
because
cute.
Caitlin must have my neighborhood targeted because I get Caitlin's mailings.
Oh, funny. Yeah.
I've had other people too. Last year I got a lot. I mean, that's kind of one of the things that sparked my thought process to, to maybe sell is I got like Crystal reached out to me, Stephanie Gamble reached out to me, like all these people, they're like, we have people that want to, buy
Live in your
goods."
neighborhood.
So, any other ideas? So if this is true, which it is true, and it's actually true for lots of parts of the country, if there are more licensees than there are available homes, that means that our business is getting extremely competitive.
I heard there was a fist fight in Anchorage over two over
Everybody
two
know anything
licensees.
about that? That's supposed to be a pretty good
That's
story.
pathetic.
Isn't it?
That's
100%.
pathetic.
I don't think it was over a listing. I have a little bit of information about it. I don't think it was over a listing though. It was
Recently, or is this?
like yesterday. or
Like this
something
Like
that.
weekend.
a couple
This
of days
weekend.
ago, yeah.
I think it was, and I experienced this because I don't show houses in Anchorage that often, but the last house I showed in Anchorage was about 2 weeks ago. And I showed up and there was literally a line
Yes.
down the road.
Yes,
And
That's
I
why they
think
got-
that's
'cause
what
they were
happened. It
taking
was
too
two
long.
People with buyers.
Oh.
yeah. And they got,
And,
but to get into a fight in front of your buyers, are you
That's
kidding me? Because you're taking 5 minutes longer than you should, really?
I think it
Yeah,
actually
if you
went
want
to.
the
That's
the
what
house
low.
happened.
that bad, make an offer
Like,
sight unseen.
That's what we
Yeah,
did.
no, I
Last
heard it
time.
actually went
We
to
did
low.
that.
Yeah.
Carolyn, aren't you willing to fight for your buyers?
Not like
That's why
that.
The question is, what are you doing to set yourself apart? Like, are you doing?
I guess we're, Devin, give me my baseball bat. I want it to hit Juno over the head.
Oh, good grief. This is sad. A little bit sad.
Okay, so today what we're talking about is a lot of times people, I don't think they either turn to new construction, have no clue what they're doing, and they might as well not even be in the transaction. They might as well just give it to the listing agent and get a referral fee because they're not helping the situation at all.
Not at all.
Two,
Not at all.
Not
they
at
don't
all.
even bring it up as an option because they don't know what they're talking about, and I mean, that would probably be a better option.
Or it
than the
scares
first one.
them.
Yeah, it scares them and they just don't know about it, so they don't bring it up as an option.
On
I
another
know.
note, commercials the same way.
Yes.
Sure.
You know, I've got a client that's looking at purchasing some big multifamily in Anchorage. He goes, they're not even giving me what I need to make a decision. So I have to go do their job first to do my job for my client?
Yeah.
What the hell? Ugh.
So I know Janice has done it and I've done it, and I don't mind if it's a good person on the other side. I have mentored a person through the transaction.
You mean from the selling, from the
From-
representing a.
I had a builder and they were a
Right,
buyer and they had
right.
no clue what they were doing, and they had it together and they were polite and so,
Right.
and I know you've probably done the same damn thing.
I
You just
got a
have to be
phone call.
humble and admit you don't know what you're doing.
And I'm happy to
you
help.
know?
I got a phone call from somebody who was interested in John Street. Remember that guy that called? And he was another agent and he was texting her and he was being very rude with her through the text. I said, give me the number. She said, no, Mom. I said, give me the number. I called him and the first words out of my mouth were, how long have you been selling real estate? I wasn't smart. I wasn't, being sarcastic. Tell me where you're at. How long have you been selling real estate? And he said, since August. And I said, well, let me.
Why are you
give
being rude?
Let me give you, oh, it wasn't on John Street. It was on Higher Road. Why won't it finance? And yeah, he said, are you trying to make a point? And then he complained to his team leader about my behavior with him on the phone.
So she got a complaint on me for making a sale on that transaction. He had actually tried to get another realtor to find him, and she wasn't finding him what he needed. And she called Devin and said, you have a realtor that's doing bad things.
Let me guess, is it Carolyn?
That's what she always says. That's what she always
Big
says.
chance that you'll be right.
That's what she said.
That's
Okay,
funny.
so, today is really about like things you should be aware of if you want to bring up new construction as an option for a buyer that can't currently find a home. And so there is this list of questions that's in the Dropbox, but I'm not gonna give these questions to these guys because I feel like these guys have enough experience, but they would already know. So I'm thinking that maybe they're gonna come up with some questions that are not on here. So
Can I
let's
glance
say,
at those?
pardon me?
She wouldn't let me look
No,
at
we're
either.
not looking at.
She
you don't
wouldn't
get to
let-
look
I mean,
at-
I'll
They're
get them to you
basic,
here in a minute,
basic.
but Janice, so let's start with you. So right out of the gate, your Mrs. Buyer wants to build a house. What's your first course of action?
Well, I'm going to identify where I want to be. What area do I want to live in? Then I'm probably going to start looking for a builder. I'll find a lot. This is me though, because, I've been doing this a long time, but your average buyer, they're probably just gonna make a phone call. But for me, if I were the buyer, I'd find
No,
where I wanna
no,
live.
you're representing the buyer.
Okay, we're gonna go look for a lot.
You're
Yeah.
gonna go look for a
We're
lot
gonna look
before
for a
you
lot.
do anything.
We're gonna look for a lot. We're gonna make an offer on that lot, subject to the buyer or the builder coming and looking at the lot, possibly doing test holes and coming to an acceptable agreement with that builder, whoever I choose, with a time frame dictated in the contract.
So I have a question. I'm learning this something. Does that buyer need to be able to purchase the lot, or are you counting on the builder being able
That
to do it?
depends on the
Depends
buyer
on
and the
situation.
builder. right?
That's a little complex to start off with. so
Sorry.
let's not go there. I know where you're going,
Okay.
and we'll get there.
Okay,
So you said before you're taking your buyer to look for lots before you even
Engage a builder.
decide, engage a builder. Okay. So you get to the point where you found a lot. We'll talk about lot purchases here in a minute, but how are you choosing a builder?
It would be based on if the buyer has a floor plan that they like. I could put it out to the top 3 in the industry. I could ask them if they have anybody that's been recommended to them. Get a couple bids just to make sure that everything is good. And then if they like what they see, then we'll schedule an appointment with that builder to further enhance that relationship. Because the agents that are representing those builders, they better have their shit together, or I'm gonna get mad because then I have to do their job too. I ain't got
So
time
what
for
does it
that.
mean to have your shit together?
You gotta have your selection sheets. You've gotta have, standard features. You've gotta have allowances. You've gotta have options. You've gotta have, there's a slew of paperwork. If you do it on the back end, it just streamlines everything on the front end.
Okay.
I was just gonna pipe in there that I have, I recently did a project with Hall.
Mhm.
And of all of the new construction I've done, which probably isn't near as much as these guys, but they are the only builder that has their quote unquote shit together.
and that's a fact.
Like,
I love
like
doing
what,
all.
yeah, like what you would think. So I would say probably at least 8 times out of 10, you're not gonna walk in to a contract where your builder has like, oh, pick this, pick that. It's gonna be
In the
much more
model home.
complicated than
Sure.
that,
Well,
you know?
Sure, and I could see that, like, I had long before I represented Precision, I had a guy that wanted to build a house and he had a very specific plan and he already had the lot because the lot was next door to the house he already owned. And the lot came for sale and he said, can you help me buy it? I'm gonna buy it and then I want to find a builder. So we met with a couple builders. Hall was one of the ones he wanted to build and Hall didn't want to build his plan. So that is.
Right, so
that
there's
is
another-
something-
He's kind of
there's
funny
another
sometimes
level
about
to
that.
this. Like, how willing are these people to go custom is kind of a question of, I do agree their process is great, but Hall didn't want.
He
anything to
doesn't
do with
like
my
to
But I
Yeah.
do think that those are like those first questions that you have with the buyer is, do they have a lot? Do they have a plan? Are they open to looking at this plan? Do they want custom? Do they want spec? I mean, there's like this freaking book you have to write, I feel like, almost before you even go look for, you might not be looking for dirt, you might be looking for dirt. The
Wait.
builder might have dirt.
You gotta
You
know
know.
what they're pre-qualified for, so you know
Well,
what builder to go
absolutely.
for.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully.
What do you
you're-
mean? What do you mean by that?
Like, well, if they're only gonna be qualified up to 250 or they need to go RD, there's different builders of different levels. Like, you're not gonna go build a Precision or a Gary Case home for that,
Why?
because they don't come
They
down to
might-
that level.
They might scale back.
You don't know that
And-
for sure. I mean.
and
I
to
would
ask,
call and ask,
until you
but
ask.
mostly I'm told no.
But like even with new construction, I mean, even on entry level, I just met with Caitlin this morning. She's got a guy that's wanting to build that little house on John Street. So that's where I just came from, was a builder's meeting. And, you know, we went through the standard selections just to make sure if there was any questions on there, we were all on the same page. And I ended up with a sheet of questions where we have to give credits and do, you know, pricing for different things to swap out in that home. But one thing I want to say with new construction, just because the builders got their shit together doesn't mean there's not hidden fees. Okay, and not speaking badly about anyone in particular, I had a client that was interested in building new construction. And they chose one of the top builders in the valley. We went under contract, the buyer's excited, the buyer's going to the property just to see the progress, without me, mind you, okay?
Yeah.
Without me,
Another
mind you.
Bad, yeah.
They're going to the property, they discovered that a cabinet was being put in the wrong spot because that's where they specifically wanted their HRV ducting. So they pointed that out.
Without
And
you.
Without me, they brought it to my attention, so I brought it to the builder's attention, and it got to the point where my client was told, if you come to this property again, you're gonna be arrested for trespassing.
I have seen that happen once
They were told that by the builder,
in Anchorage. I've had that happen.
and, you know, wrong answer.
Yeah.
Janice
I
is
have
going
dealt
to-
with that on the opposite end of the spectrum where that the buyer was talking to subs, changing things with subs, going unaccompanied with their realtor. So I think that's just, and I'm gonna write this down, we're gonna add it to this thing that's in signature. A great question to ask, because this is all about, like Jeremiah's always really big about setting expectations. Like, what's your procedure requirements, for the buyer visiting the property?
Okay,
So ours is this: no one's on the property unless you're accompanied by your agent. You can come anytime you want, but your agent
Without
has to be-
notice?
Without notice, with your agent.
okay, that's a double-edged sword. And the reason being, my client gave the builder 16 grand. You know, outside of notice to proceed funds to install beautiful rock, real rock, not the simulated stuff. They wanted custom, so they were paying for custom. When that builder told my client, you are not allowed on the property or we're gonna press charges for trespassing, I have an issue with that. You don't have signs out there. You don't have signs out there saying no trespassing. So you're gonna allow the public at large to walk through this house that my client's got a vested interest in?
The house wasn't locked up at that point?
No,
Oh,
you're
well,
gonna
I
let
can see
them,
that.
you're gonna let anybody and their dog walk through this property that has no vested interest, but my client can't come to the property unaccompanied with me?
But
So I think we're not gonna solve an issue for every single situation.
No, I
But
understand.
I
that.
think the important thing to know is is your client's expectation that they can go to the property whenever they want?
No,
And it shouldn't be.
And,
no.
and I mean, but maybe, or whenever they want, or check on progress, or whatever that expectation might be. And does that meet what the builder's saying? Because I think what the problem is that's just not communicated, and it's just implied or assumed, or we think, you know, this is how it should be. And that's the builder's like, hell no, 16 grand, who cares? I got 300 grand into this project of my own money or whatever. So I can see both sides of it, but the important part is that we know what the buyers are expecting, and that we're able to communicate that to the builder ahead of time. So we know if the builders, you know, there's those builders out there, and I have a couple guesses at who that might be. And I
They even
mean,
put a
some of them are
camera.
nicer than others. Let's just say that.
They even put a camera in the trees.
I do think that,
Crazy.
like, just hearing all this, like, I recently finished a new construction. I have two, actually, with two builders who could not be more different, right? Like, one was like, yeah, come anytime, do what you want, blah, blah, blah. And the other one was like, you have to schedule, and they only during these days and hours. And I mean, I'm with Jeremiah's. This is about setting expectations. And I think if you're gonna be a buyer's realtor on new construction, then it's your responsibility to know exactly what the builder's expectations are. And it's your job to make sure that your buyer has respect for that. Because the truth is, because I have had people say well, it's our house, and like, well, see, it
No, it's
actually
not yet.
isn't, right? The house belongs to the builder. It's not yours.
Yeah.
Even, you know, regardless. So, but if you address those ahead of time, like you said, now you know this builder's like, yeah, come anytime, do whatever you want. I would still not recommend that to my buyers.
Yeah.
I would be like, you know, let's just make an appointment to go, because it just too
They
many
get-
things.
well,
Like
they
you
get
said, they,
excited.
My duplex,
talked to
they said,
somebody
come
and-
anytime, but after the subs leave. So the subs left at 4, so they could go after 4.
without a realtor.
No,
Oh, with the
no,
realtor.
but
because there's also-
Before it happens.
Ahead
Exactly.
of time, right?
Yeah,
So
like,
set,
who this wall's framed in the wrong spot.
sure.
In the walkthrough on a Tuesday night, you can get everybody notified, and then things are fixed before now they're sheet rock and buttoned up, and oh shit, now it's gonna really cost versus.
No, I mean, I also think that it's the buyer's representative's duty to make those walkthroughs at framing,
You
at
need to
sheetrock,
do
at
that.
cabinets, that's your job.
You'd be
right?
shocked at how many buyers, realtors don't go to the property and
And
expect us
I've
to do
sold
it.
houses that
It's
the
insane.
buyer had a realtor that the realtor never saw the house.
Exactly.
Not ever.
I've sold multiple
Ever.
houses representing the builder and where the buyer, or either that or the first time they saw it was during the final walkthrough.
Yeah,
Where they
right.
decided to give me opinions on.
Everything that had
single
been
thing. I
done.
was like, where have
That's
you
right.
been? I will
That's
never
happened to me
forget
too.
my last one of that. I was like, you, and you made about 20 grand.
I think if you are gonna be a buyer's realtor for a new construction, that you need to be really committed to that. That's what I think. I
And you
mean,
gotta
you
bid.
can't just be all like willy-nilly, oh, they're buying new construction, and let it just roll down the sellers, the builders, realtors back, you know, because why would you do that?
Because.
Sure.
Because they do.
Some people just.
They
They
do,
don't value their career.
right?
Or they don't have the proper mentorship.
That's
True,
true.
that's
They
true
don't have
too.
the people to
I
turn
was
to.
just talking to a realtor in Anchorage about this today, because he was telling me how he's starting to mentor realtors. He works in Anchorage, and he's like, he's like 90% of these people in our industry are just kind of just winging it.
Yeah.
They
Just
are
kind of
winging it.
figuring it out.
They
And
are
I mean,
winging it.
honestly, that's how I learned, but it doesn't have to be how, I mean, it's just very stressful to, especially because new construction is, especially if you're going ground up, is gonna take 6 months. It would be very frustrating to go through all of that work, and you know how much work that is, and then get to the end and it's like the deal's done.
Mhm.
And then somebody's very mad at you, they're probably.
Or they're
losing
not
money.
happy.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, they're not
Yeah.
happy at all about the transaction, they're not gonna recommend you because of whatever, you know. maybe
Whether
they're
it was your
mad at
fault or not.
So what happened? What would make the deal fall apart at the end?
Lots of things.
Lost their
I've never-
job.
I've
Lots of-
that, yeah, I've never had that happen on new construction.
Oh, I have.
I have had that. They've lost their job. Or they quit their job, or they bought a Hummer. That happened.
I had somebody, this is not on new construction,
School-
but I had somebody
Seriously,
buy 4 4-wheelers, not one.
but
not two,
4.
4 4-wheelers. builders on
And lose
credit.
their deal.
And that was mad at me. Okay,
Yes.
so we have standard features. We talked about the, identifying the land. What do you guys think about like, because not all properties for sale are listed. So we have lots that we own that are not listed as to be built. I mean, do you guys ever do that? Do you call builders?
Call the
and
builders,
say,
yep, what do you got?
What do you have?
Yep.
I mean, that's
Absolutely.
an option. I mean, we try to put to be built on all of them, but then right now we're getting so many calls that we're like, we're just gonna keep these
On the
right
side.
now for the side. Because then we're having, like, there's only so many pre-solds you can do. at
So you
one
wanna
time.
sell one?
Right.
Yeah.
Or two?
No, he just bought him.
Well, you can
He
sell
just
them.
bought him. No, he doesn't need to
He
sell
could
them.
probably make a quick 10 grand.
It's
He
just
didn't
like,
do it.
especially if we have like somebody that likes this house, that goes, one of his
Here's-
specs that goes into
There you
competing
go.
offers, we can roll them to a
That's
different
all.
lot. But so builders have, lots available a lot of times that are not listed that you would have no access to or, knowledge
Which
of.
don't get mad if there's a builder that has lots that won't sell to your builder. Because,
And 99%
they
of
may
the
or may
time
not.
that They will not.
right, they may not. So you can't get upset because they did the due diligence and found the lots because they're getting harder and harder. And you can't expect them to say, oh, sure, build it my neighborhood.
Have you
That's
ever
not gonna
had it
happen.
be successful? Like where you said, hey, I know you have this lot, but can we have it, but we don't want to use you? I've never heard of that actually. working
That
out.
typically doesn't happen.
It,
We get calls all the time for Very West, all the time.
Just like Paul, I mean, he buys the chunk of ground,
Yeah.
subdivides it and
he will once in a while
Is
sell
like
to
the
another builder though.
architectural
Really?
process on
And
it,
Rex
you know,
Turner did.
like-
I mean, they will, but don't expect it.
Okay, so what are some of the other questions you're asking? Let's say you found a builder. What are some of the questions? Let's just say we're gonna go with Joe Smith Builders. What are some of the questions you're asking these builders?
Well, I think one is obviously about the plans. Does he have a plan that you want? Do you have your own plan? Are you gonna go see an architect? Money, like, notice to proceed, earnest money, what that builder, because not everybody's the same.
Right.
If you have a VA buyer, they're hoping
Or
to get into
RD.
it for nothing.
Right.
But most builders won't do that, so you need to actually know if your builder will even work with those programs. Yeah, do they have specs? Do they have selection sheets? Where do they get their products? Yeah, and what else?
What other questions?
how long have you been building? You
Look
know,
up his license and endorsements, obviously vet your builder,
do you have recommendations? Do you have people that I can reach out to?
talk to them in person.
Can I see some of your product? Can I walk through some of these?
Yeah, do you have something up that I can look at?
Sure,
Do you have a website? Facebook?
yeah.
Has anybody ever called some of the people that did pass build?
Yes. I have.
How about, do we have a residential endorsement or?
That's a
Right, so
good
you
one.
can look that right
can
up
look it up.
online.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I always try to go look and see who they're,
And you're looking at, you're the one looking at that.
Yes.
yeah. Yeah, if I'm
Yeah,
representing.
because I'm not gonna make
buyer.
it hostile. I'm not gonna go to a builder and go, is that yours? I'm gonna know.
Right.
Is that
I
yours?
mean, I think at the end of the day, you can't pick a builder for a buyer. Just like you can't tell somebody what to do, buy this house, don't buy this house. I think you have to show them
Educate them.
options, educate them, give them the material to look at. And then once they say, well, what about this guy? What about this guy?
Have
know,
one or
then
two
you-
meetings.
Yeah, vet them, have a couple of meetings, see what their
I mean, with
expectations
different
are.
builders.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah.
Are you guys asking upfront what kind of warranty they offer?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Are you asking for a copy of it?
Mhm.
We have a,
Yeah, most of the builders have a copy with their paperwork, right? Well, the builders that have paperwork. Well, I'm literally doing one right now with the great builder, but he doesn't really have.
Well, there's a lot of that. I mean, honestly, there's a lot of that. There's like, I've worked with builders that have their shit together, which the product was crap.
Right.
The
And then
product
other
was
ones are
absolute
fabulous.
crap.
They're
And then
great
I've had people that you
administration.
would say are complete
Right,
shit show.
and their product was fantastic.
right.
But I think it's really hard to manage expectations with your client because, ultimately, it's not really about the builder. It's about you and your relationship with your client without that paperwork.
But
and
it's even harder
information.
now with COVID because you've got delays, you've got all kinds of things
So I
happening.
think that gets back to set your expectations. And I heard you say like new construction takes 6 months on a really good day.
It
right?
could be 8 now.
9.
Nine.
I just did 2 that took 12.
My duplex took 12
Right, or
months.
one that took
Cindy's
12,
I didn't think
one
that
that
was
took
ever gonna
9.
close.
One took 12, one took 9. And
I
they
need
were,
mine to take 4.
and we never
Well,
for.
good luck with that.
It's not that it can't be done, it's that there's
Yeah.
hiccups that the builders are running into that they can't,
Otherwise, who's
they
gonna
can't,
care?
they have no control over.
Mhm.
Like the
You know.
subs now. Holy
Can't
moly.
get subs, they're making more money on unemployment.
Exactly. They're making more money on unemployment. They won't come to work.
Mhm.
That's what happened with Prestige in my duplex.
Wow.
Is there anything, okay, so I found, I've looked at a lot of different builders warranties and mostly it's like, okay, we'll come back and fix settling cracks. Anything that's like weeded, yeah, you know, I mean,
Workmanship.
we'll warranty it, but after that, good luck. Has anybody ever seen anything that you're like, whoa, that's way different than a different builder?
I
Like, or
worked
other
with a
builders?
young builder about 5 years ago. We did a small house for my son-in-law, actually, and he had his shit together. And
We're gonna know what that
We're
means.
just gonna go with this.
Yeah.
he had his documentation that he delivered to us at closing was absolutely impeccable. And it was like, he had all of the people's name on there that they would, if they needed to call somebody, the electrician, the plumber, the painter, the whatever, he had them coming, he had a paperwork for them to fill out at 30, 90, 120 and 360 days, whatever, like just,
That's
and he had
impressive.
little lists like, you know, heating, plumbing, paint, you know, cracking, flooring, whatever. And you just did that for you. The buyer wasn't calling all the time. They were filling out this paperwork every 3 months and then turning it over to the builder, and they were getting their stuff. He was great. It was amazing. It was Destiny Homes.
He's not here no more, is he?
Yeah,
No,
he
he
is.
is still here.
Randy is representing him.
Do you have a copy of that? That's awesome.
Maybe, but it was
He
super
actually draws
impressive.
a lot of Weaver's plans.
And he draws
And he
up
draws
plans.
Yeah.
It's definitely a cool asset for builders, because that is good to know, like, how are these plans coming, you know, how are these plans coming together? Are you hiring somebody? Do you expect?
And is that an extra expense?
Cost,
Because that can be thousands of dollars.
It is, it could be.
Mhm.
Okay, we've covered these. Let's just go back to the money part of it, because we kind of briefly skipped over that. That's one question that I find that most people do not ask because they don't get it, is like, how much money upfront is my buyer going to have to come up with? In terms of earnest money and notice to proceed or whatever else. Yeah,
Right,
how do
upgrades.
upgrades get funded?
Some are about 5% down.
Percent?
That's crazy.
I ran into that. We didn't build that.
We didn't do
You
that.
want 20% down and notice to proceed?
Yep.
Wow.
Granted, on the higher end lot, it's not like in the ranch, but yeah, they're only 20% for notice to proceed.
So that's a really good question to ask before any of the other questions, because if your client doesn't have 20% down, you're moving on to the next option.
Right.
Because, I mean, I mean, there's a lot of builders right now that are not taking pre-solds at all because of the volatility of the
Of all the
market and
drama.
like the wood cost, they can't predict. And they just don't want to get in a position where they have to honor a sales price and they're losing money. Now they're working for free or losing money. So I get it. That's something to be aware of.
So what are they doing? Just building specs?
Building specs, because
And
then they can
pricing
raise,
them.
they can raise the price throughout. Like we have specs that we have to continue to adjust the price on as it is constructed because prices are more expensive.
And they're just continuing. They're just going.
Either that or some people, you know, they're not putting them on the market until they're almost done and there's very little, like, yeah, you can pick the exterior color. And
Right, maybe some carpet.
because at the end of the
They
day,
usually
like
have that
sometimes
ordered
the
now.
selection process is where things get really screwed up because they're like, they want what they want, but they only have so much in their allowance budget. And then they're mad that they can't get what they want. Well, they can't. Yeah, well.
So
that
I think
conversation is not always that simple.
Right, but that's a conversation, obviously, right, is because you get those lists from the builder, like we just did on this one, where it says, you know, your appliance allowance is this, and your carpet allowance, and your tile allowance is this. And I think again, with the setting expectations is hopefully you know a little bit about that you could be like, okay, I've heard you talk that you want, gold plated countertops.
Not gonna happen.
This allowance is not gonna cut it.
Allowance is not gold plated.
Right. So,
get
I
two
can
by
see you
fours.
going over. And so, yeah,
You get
it's
laminate.
so diverse. There's so many
So we just
diverse-
learned a lesson from Jeremiah. If they go do their selections, they're buying them now. Like they rented storage because
Hopefully.
they're not there when you go to get them later.
Oh,
Because of
oh,
COVID,
Oh, yeah.
not because, yeah,
That's a great question right now.
they're
to
putting them
ask,
in storage. They're
is-
buying it
Is
now.
when we give you the selections, are you going to purchase them right then?
That's the question, because
Because
if
we-
not,
we
you're
had
not gonna
that
get
issue.
it.
We had somebody that was very, very on top of it, gave us all their lighting selections, house isn't even framed yet. They're like, we already know because they don't live here. And gave us all their lighting selections. We go to purchase them.
Not
and
there.
We can't get 3 of them.
Right.
Luckily, we were able to figure it out. We were able to order them online.
Yeah.
But I could see that being an issue. And so that's a great
It's a
question.
huge issue right now.
That's a great question. Like, do you guys purchase your stuff right away?
Appliances are another thing. They need to order right away because they're taking 6 months to get here
Yep.
sometimes.
I got my appliances at the beginning of January and they are supposed to be here May 28th.
So you gotta do it.
Wow.
Crazy.
And the
They're
builder
not like
needs to
anything
purchase
crazy.
them.
They are not like
Super,
out of
super,
control,
right.
like, they are really simple things. What, so are you explaining to them how notice to proceed and earnest money works? Are you having that conversation with the builder? Like, is this money released to the builder? Is this money, I mean, I've
Held in
seen all-
escrow.
Is it held in escrow? Do you understand
Is
that
it
this money
refund,
is
it's non-refundable, right?
non-refundable? Those are some questions and conversations that you should be having with them. Another question that I think is a, pardon me?
If you do a free appraisal, with just a plan, and if it, 6 or 8 months later, will it still appraise for that, and you don't have to give on that price?
So we're gonna get to that. That's one of the questions on here, because I've seen kind of everything across the board. A question to ask, do you use your own contract or will we be writing this on the MLS contract? It's good to know because it's been my experience that if people write their own contract, it is going to be way more heavily weighted in the favor of the builder.
And they bypass a lot of them mediation and go straight to arbitration. There is no mediation. And you have to give the builder a chance to correct the problem before you can even do anything.
Well, if they're a member of the, members of the Matson Home Builders, that's part of their thing too. You have to, and I think that's a part of a statute too, that you have to.
But a
give
lot
the
of people
builder-
don't know that.
You have to give them the opportunity to correct their issue. Sometimes they're not correctable.
Mhm.
But that's good to know, and you don't want the first time for you and your client to see the builder's contract to be the second you're signing.
Right.
No.
Because you need to look at it, because there's a lot of stuff in there.
So that's a question to ask and say, can I get a copy of like just a blank? So we can know what we're getting into.
And Holquist, Spinell, who else has their own? Garrick,
Oh, yeah. Garrett.
Tyler.
Byler, now, they didn't used to, but they do now.
Hall, I think, does it all have their own?
No, I
Nope.
did that on a
Nope.
I just didn't
MLS.
want Peterson's group.
And they have their own?
Yeah, but they could never produce it. They just
But I
produced
would say that the MLS, I would say that if you're getting into new construction with somebody, there is, even the MLS contract is very weighted to the seller, right? I mean, you don't
Which is interesting because if you just look at the residential contract, it's
buyer,
Skewed,
right?
yeah,
So
to
you
buyer.
can, I think just again, those are setting expectations because you can get to the end of a contract, let's say you're building and your builder is 90 days, going 90 days long, right? But you've already picked everything out and you're at the end of the project and you have non-refundable earnest money. What is the buyer's real option? I'll tell you what it is, and that is to wait for your builder to finish your freaking home. Because otherwise you're walking, I mean, It's just, you don't have a lot of
Some
options.
buyers
And
can
they
have 30
just,
grand
and they
into a
just need
project.
to know
Explain
this.
that isn't when it's, you know,
When it's
your
happening.
contract is expiring and
Right.
this is only she wrote.
Right.
Like, that's not the time to have the conversation about what it looks like if you have a delay.
And even though you do that, and Jessica's a perfect example, even though you explain all this to the buyer, they still don't like it or
No,
understand.
they're not.
And they're not appreciative in any way, shape or form.
I
I
thought, go ahead.
was gonna say, I did a new construction with Bishkeen.
Mhm.
Okay, not everybody knows Bishkeen,
I don't know if it's.
but
I don't either.
we were looking at a property over on Charlottesville, and my client said, I like that lot. So I pulled him up in the tax rolls, I got his phone number, I called him,
It's a taxi driver,
I don't know. what it
Yes.
Ah,
is. Is he?
Yeah.
I had to deal with him with the worst.
You know, my client
Is he
made
really
an
a taxi
offer.
driver?
He owns the taxi company.
Yeah.
Was he- is he a builder?
Yeah, in all fairness, yeah.
He builds a beautiful home if you can get him to do it.
Okay.
But we picked the lot, we identified the plan, he met with us, we wrote the contract on a Sunday, they were leaving town for 6 months. When they came back, we didn't even have the right windows and it wasn't even sheet rock. And I was gonna sue him for my commission, because I brought forth a bona fide, ready, willing, and able buyer.
But
But they
the same
had,
problem, signed the contract, they didn't even start for like 3 months.
yeah, but see, he's got a lot of financial issues, so if you hear that name, Bashkim, what's the name of his company?
Advanced construction.
Advanced construction.
Be very
It was-
careful.
it was Kelly Wise.
I mean, you find all these houses all over the valley that aren't done and they're just sitting there,
He had
that's
to bring
him.
$40,000
That's bad.
And even his investors won't fund him.
That's why he did it.
Oh,
You know, because he builds a beautiful home, he really does. But
just getting him to do it. He'd rather drive a taxi.
And then they listed,
He's busy.
they listed that it was import heat. So we bought this import heat, and then about 4 weeks into it, we realized it wasn't framed for import heat.
Oh.
Oh, Lordy.
You know, so then we're trying to get out of it. Just
Yeah.
really easy.
I just think that like you need to ask a lot of questions before you are allowing your buyer to write very large checks. to builders.
And it was the realtor too.
Has there ever been a precedent in this industry, in the residential industry, of someone creating a document that holds the builder accountable? Producing a finished product in a timely
Oh,
manner?
they won't sign.
How
I
can you
just
make
wondered-
them do
No,
that?
I just asking.
He was
I'm
the
just asking.
same.
Like Bashim is another
But I
story,
think
but
the problem
if
with
it's
that
Is
is,
this
legitimate?
trying to set that precedent for representing buyers in this building?
right, I would love to see that, but I
Yeah,
think the
that'd be awesome.
problem is, and especially now, but the problem always is the same, is that, whether,
Shipping.
shipping.
Fishing season.
That's a fact. That's a damn fact.
Commercial world, there are European contracts, there'd be liquidated damages associated with.
Sure.
Delays, granted, there's acts of God, and like all that stuff, but that ends at certain, not because it's hunting season, because there was a freaking earthquake.
right, but
okay.
hunting season
I-
is a
Is
legitimate,
there ever been liquidated damages
No.
established in the residential?
Nope.
building?
I like this idea because when we ended up with that last one where we were like 30, then 60, then 90 days overdue, I really felt like I have no
No, you don't.
options,
no
nothing.
control.
Like, we could go to the builder, especially in this market, because I told them, I said, we can go to the builder and we can say, we're out, like, we're out of contract.
But
we're
you're out of money.
And you know what he's gonna say?
Good, bye.
Adios.
I'll
Because
resell.
this-
Yeah,
this is
bye-bye.
Now worth 50,000 more than when I started.
Exactly.
So our hands
So
were tied.
basically, shut up and enjoy your equity, but say it
Yeah.
nice.
I just think too, like, just managing those expectations upfront. So like the next question is, what's the expected length of the time for the project? So I have to always clear this, be very clear about this, because Igor's standard answer is 4 to 5 months. 4 to 5 months.
And
I'm
builders
like-
are terrible
And
about that.
I mean,
Lies.
I think he's great
No, I don't
about
think
this.
they're
It's
lying.
like, can we- what he means is, from the time I start digging, 4 to 5 months.
Potentially.
from the time you break ground.
Maybe.
Yes.
Right.
Unless it's a super custom home or something.
Right.
He's usually pretty close, 4 to 5 months.
But I think that's important too, like from the
But
time.
I
you
always have
moved
to
your-
clarify that, because we had a contractor in January. Well, he's not breaking ground till April.
Right.
4 to 5 months from then is when he's talking about. And I think sometimes they don't have to deal with like the conversations we have to deal with. So we have to make sure that they're like, you ask more questions.
Right.
Um,
If the timeframe builder too, because some builders have packages already, but you can't.
Trusses is.
That's a problem right now.
Back to your question, Lori, we were talking about appraisals. So one question I like to ask builders is, are you obtaining a construction loan? Do you
Money
self-finance?
Out of pocket,
Do
right.
you have a hard money lender? And do you require a pre-appraisal? And do you start before that appraisal is done? So, because there is I will tell you, all across the board. Our builder does not do an appraisal till the end. If somebody is absolutely insisting on it, he will do it. He's never had an issue with it. He doesn't like to do it. And he just doesn't do it. He doesn't have to, he doesn't get bank loans or anything like that. I've seen people that start the new construction, they have enough capital to start it, and 60 days in, they do their cash first draw or whatever. That's fine too. Then I've seen builders that literally do nothing until the construction loan is funded.
And the construction appraisal.
And the appraisal.
Right.
Right, which requires the
Right.
appraisal. So that's a great question for you to ask them.
That's why my duplex took a year.
Yeah, what is your process?
I didn't ask a damn question.
Sign here. we're
I
building a new
did
place.
it. I didn't, figured, he's a pretty prominent builder and I'm thinking,
I think
You
it's
need to wait
crazy
for the
start
construction loan?
without appraisal.
Well, they needed to
Obviously,
be-
if they're working for it.
But
they
I-
needed to be funded before they could even start.
Right, and I think that in certain markets, you're absolutely right, and I think that that's a question, like in this market, I think
They
people
probably won't be too worried about it.
feel like they shouldn't be worried about
I
it.
should have been.
But then that's a conversation you have to have with your buyer too, right? Because if it doesn't make appraisal, that's coming out of their pocket.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah,
So,
that's definitely a conversation.
yeah, I mean, that. I think that
But
new buyers, buyers building new construction should be told, like, this can be like the coolest experience ever. But if
And
you
it also
It
could
can
be the
be.
opposite.
right, but if you're, listen to me and, let's go through this process so that your expectations are that, it's all about expectations, right? I mean, it really is.
And
because-
perception.
Perception, because it can be a really cool process, but it's probably gonna create an enormous amount. Other things they need to know too is if they go by their house, this is a common one. I was by there 3 days.
Nobody's there.
3 days in a row and nobody's there, right? Well, that's because they're finishing up another project. I mean, you've got to be able to say these things. And
Right.
You can't go to them and go, that's bullshit. I'm calling the builder right now.
Yeah.
Why isn't somebody there building? Because you're not doing the process any good.
Or they're
right?
waiting for the drywaller who's on
Or
another
they're- or the
project. Or
mud's
they're
drying. It's
Or
like-
the mud's
Yeah.
drying,
But
or,
I had plants one time, and I warned them.
the mud,
The
yeah.
house is framed, it looks way smaller, you're gonna wonder where the other half of your square footage is, every time.
Yes.
They didn't believe me, and they literally took like, boxes from like and did the footprint of their house to make sure that if it was actually the size it was supposed to
gonna be, right.
Yeah, I'm like,
Yeah.
basically,
I think it's a buyer's agent's responsibility to manage the buyer's expectations. That's their responsibility. Like, if you want to do new construction, well, you should probably get a drinking problem first. And then, if you don't drink, don't even think about it. I'm just kidding. I don't
Yeah.
drink.
Well, this morning I did that builders meeting with Caitlin, and I mean, her buyer's sitting there, she's sitting there, and I just educated the shit out of him. I mean, he walked out of there going.
For
"Wow,"
your builder.
For the builder that we were doing the meeting on.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You're
Yeah.
Caitlin.
But
Yeah.
sometimes they leave going, zzz, that
Oh, yeah.
their head's spinning because they're like, what?
I mean, I think it should be a process of encouragement and warning.
warning, yeah.
Really, because if you're not warning them about what some of the things that can happen and how lock expirations, money out of pocket.
That's
yeah,
bad.
Yeah, but.
I mean,
That's
I-
another
I
one.
just had to make a call yesterday. Your well went over 201.
There's
Yeah,
a
that's
well,
9 grand.
the water,
So
right?
why don't the builders call if they're hitting the 100-foot mark? Why don't they call the agent and say, hey, you might want to talk to your client. We're gonna end up going over 100 feet that's included in the contract. I had one where it was $7,000.
Yeah, this is nice.
But this is a conversation you have early.
I
Do you
know.
have money in your
As
bank
a
account?
Buyer's agent, I try to look at, try to be 100% by looking at the wells in the area. But
Yep.
I try to, like, here's a rough idea, so you kind of know, like, if the well is a 400-foot well, chances are so is yours gonna be. You're not gonna end up with you know, 100-foot level, like be prepared.
And
so you have that-
$18,000 is gonna be added to the price of your house.
Well, and
you're not gonna
oftentimes
have
you
any
can
freeze
have, in 2 cases we did where we looked at the wells and the one that we did over off of Amberwood, all of the wells in the area were deep, 250, 280, where a builder doesn't typically have that big of an allowance. So we estimated that well amount and we put it in the contract before the appraisal.
Increase.
We
That's
increased
what
the
you-
price,
yes.
and it turned out that their freaking well was 80 feet.
They're
like,
They had a lot of
$10,000
extras.
credit.
They had granite, they had.
Right, but we're just writing another one where we've asked the builder to put in a $18,000 well credit.
Right. And
just
like,
because-
you know ahead of time, but that again is a buyer.
There's-
they just need to
Right, and
know.
there's still,
Oh, there's still
I
pockets.
mean, it can
but-
still take a shit, but yeah.
Did we, sorry, can we touch on the initial land
Yeah.
process? Because there's a little bit of conflicting information. So ideally, you want your client to own their lot with cash, like.
That'd be
they come to
awesome.
You, they own the lot, that's easy.
That'd be
Let's
awesome.
Let's start there.
That's
okay?
beautiful,
Let's
but
start
That's
there.
beautiful.
Let's start there because I've had this issue. Let's just start with
Yeah, 'cause I
that.
don't know.
Really simple, easy. It seems simple. but
It's
so
not.
Let me tell you the scenario. The young couple in their early 20s, as a wedding gift, their grandparents give them a lot on the bluff. It's probably worth 200 grand, and this was 15 years ago.
This was in Anchorage.
No.
Oh,
It's
it happened to be in
it's
Anchorage.
Down Davis Road, 5 acres on the bluff. They're like 22, 23 years old. And they gifted to them. So we go and we're getting a contract to build them a house on it. And they did not realize that they were going to have to then deed the property to the builder.
Mhm.
And they were like, well, wait a minute, what if he dies? What if, you know? So that, I mean, that's a conversation, honestly.
And
that
that's
needs
what
to happen
happened.
If you're like deeding a
He
massive
died.
asset.
No.
You own outright
Do you,
to
were
the
you
builder.
around?
They need to be aware of that well ahead of time.
That's what happened in Anchorage, but it was
Protected.
several people and it was bluff lots and he went out of business and they all lost their property to the bank, all of them.
So a good point to this is how financially sound is your builder? And I'm trying to think if you guys can brainstorm maybe creative ways to ask this. One is, do you obtain construction loans or do you finance yourself or you have hard money or
And who is
Whatever.
who is your lender, right?
who is your lender? Yeah, I mean, because if you get hard money, like who is that? There's only a couple people that do it out here.
And that's riskier.
Well, yeah, and what they
Well,
charge.
because the interest rates are higher and because if your builder, I'm not saying it's a bad idea because I've worked a lot with hard money. But I'm just saying
Oh,
it's a different builder that's going for hard money than it is that's going to a lender, because a lender is a lot more difficult to get money from. So than hard money is.
Yeah, she's like, we've got
Hard
money,
money
come
is
get
way
it.
more expensive.
Christine, yeah.
And builders who are very established and more financially sound. I'm not saying that they're
I
not
don't think that's
financially
true.
sound. Really? Okay.
Yeah,
Hard
What-
money is so much easier and they can just, they're
'Cause-
out the
But it's
door.
way more expensive. Why,
yeah.
as a builder, would you go for hard money if
Because
you
I
can go for
honestly, I
cheaper
think
money?
I can only speak for one.
Right.
builder. I think because he's putting a majority of his money in it anyway.
Oh, so
it's
it's
just a
small
little,
amounts.
yeah,
Yeah,
small
but I
amounts.
mean, it's just easy, like, I mean.
It is
Simple.
We
easy.
find five
You call
lots,
Christine,
we
she
get-
says
we get-
here.
Well, we don't use Christine, but I know
Sure.
there's a lot of builders that do.
Okay.
We use Howard.
Oh, yeah.
That's, yeah,
Right.
And
He's good
so
too.
It's just.
I mean, it does make sense that it's way easier. I know that it's a way easier process.
But if you take a look at what they're charging, because I just went through this scenario talking to both Howard and Christine, typically they charge 10 points.
Yep.
So if it's $200,000 house, they're gonna make 20 grand.
And that's just on the
Just-
point, so it's not the
That's just
interest.
the points. And then
Right.
the investor, the one that's got the money, that's gonna loan the money to you, you pay Christine 10 points to get you the money, but then the investor wants 5 or 6. So if it's $200,000 house, that's another 12 grand. So right now we're up to 32,000. And then they charge interest on that up until, from the time you start drawing up until the date of reporting.
Right.
So typically it's, 10% interest. And I ran the scenario, if you do a full year, if it takes a year and you're taking the draws, and just on the
Cause it's
overall
only on
balance.
the money that's out.
Yeah, so
No,
that's about 20 grand. So right now you're at $52,000. There's the profit.
yeah, you're building for nothing.
And
I know.
I don't think precision is looking for nothing.
well,
No, I mean, I think,
but so the new guys starting out, like this one that we're doing with Caitlin, you know, they're getting hard money lending and, you know, they've got to do what they got to do in order to build themselves up. But I'm going, holy shit.
well, I think that brings up another subject is I think that's a pretty good motivator for builders too.
To get
not
it done.
Sit on their asses.
That will help,
Oh,
yeah.
with hard money?
Right.
For
Hard
sure.
money, they're busting
Right,
their
right.
ass.
They're like, they are, yeah, they got
No,
money
wait,
out.
When you get the construction one out with a traditional bank, you're getting charged for how much money's out, so.
But
Right,
you're not
and
getting
you are,
charged
you
10
are with
points.
the hard money
It's
too.
just less money,
Yeah,
and it's like, you know, like,
It's
I've heard
considerably less
like
money.
daily, they're getting, it's about $150 a day.
Yep.
So, in just in interest. So, okay, so let's talk about a different scenario. Janice meets with her client, they want to do new construction, she takes them out to find a lot. What is your process for that? Then you're writing an offer.
I write an offer on the lot, subject to the builder previewing possible test holes, and I write the offer in my client's name or assigns. So that way, once we've selected a builder, because my client doesn't have the money to buy the lot, we want to be able to assign it over to the builder that can cash it out at closing.
At
If
first draw
the-
or whatever.
Correct, if the buyer's doing owner financing and he gets a construction loan, then cash out at first draw. So he gets paid first draw, the bank's in the first position, so that way they can lien the property if need be.
What's another option?
I call Brian and have him go look at the dirt with me. And I start dating a dirt guy. So
Yeah.
I go look at the dirt as soon as my clients say, like, or getting somebody who is an excavator, who knows probably the area.
Well, the builder should walk the lot.
should too.
He should walk the lot with his excavator. If he's not doing that, there's a and then maybe he'll walk the lot
But
with
she's
fire.
saying if she's representing her client, she hasn't even found the builder yet, she's found the lot, the location.
Now, if
right?
they have a builder, then we
Subject to
approach
the
it.
builder.
Yeah,
Yeah. but
And
like,
then
we
don't
have
you
to
ex-
go out of it.
Expect the builder.
First steps out of
Correct.
there, we start letting a builder go and looking at 17 different lots from Meadow Lakes to Palmer. Like, let's start weeding through some of these.
Yeah, because it's like sometimes we think that other people know what we know. And it's like, I've had people like send me lots and then we go out there.
There's no gas, there's
standing
no
water on
electric,
the lot.
there's, or there's no gas or electric.
for sale sign in the middle
It's
of a lake.
$18,000 away, and they're like, what do you mean it's $18,000 away?
So then, calling for utilities, I try to get as much of the preliminary work done for my clients, and calling NSTAR, calling anyway, looking at the wells in the area, looking at the soils in the area, pulling up just the DEC docs. I don't understand them very well, but I'll send them to somebody who does.
Yeah.
You know, like, okay, this looks good to me, and here's a little bit of septic, and, oh, well, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if all the neighbors have lift stations.
Right.
Then yeah.
Yeah, like that's something we.
And that's an extra
You
charge.
guys know about the bare earth mapping with the borough, right? Does everybody know about that? The bare earth mapping with the borough? I've gotten pretty good to where I could read that. and I can look at it and go, you probably have a high water table there.
You mean, with just showing the contours? What's been
It's
expanded?
Yeah.
Hillshade or?
Yeah.
It's one of
Yeah.
the layers.
There's two sets, one is for wetlands.
Yeah, there is the other wetlands side.
There's a wetland, so I just checked the wetlands.
I've never looked at the wetlands.
And then I checked the contours and wetlands and maps of road, which doesn't. But I just checked those two.
You get a test hole?
Yeah, I just think that's how to do it. Because when you find a lot of the lot, I always have to go.
So that's a question.
Yeah.
Do you dig a test, like if you're in, we're in this scenario, Janice has written the offer, subject to a builder, she goes with Billy Bob Builders. And are you gonna dig a test hole on this before you purchase this lot? Or are you gonna go out there and then tell us we need a lift station and then now my buyer is responsible for that? Like,
No,
it would be good to know which one.
you know, I sold 2 pieces of land to some folks that came up here in 2006. I didn't sell it to them. I sold it for them. And it was probably 4 years ago. They paid 60 grand each for these lots. It was in a great subdivision down Wasilla Fish Hook. And it wasn't selling. And I told him, I said, we should really look at getting test holes because it looks like you might have a high water table. Water was 3 feet below the surface.
Oh.
They paid 60 grand a piece.
Oh.
We sold them for 25.
You know, I always think of that with that is,
Stephanie, that used to work at Century 21
Oh,
with
yeah,
us,
yeah,
they bought a lot, same thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, yeah, that lot up there, we live.
They bought 2 lots.
Yeah,
And they
and
were
then the
gonna,
builder
like,
went out there
combine
and
them or
they're like,
whatever.
not building it.
Wow.
Without a lot of dirt work, a ton,
I mean, I guess anything is buildable. but-
$100,000
Yeah,
worth of
like-
dirt work, yeah.
They were just like.
I mean, they basically, I think they might even still. Like, it's
Aw.
just like had to abandon it. Awesome. Yeah, so, great question. Do you dig a test hole, yes or no? Don't assume they do. Not assume.
Recommend it, highly recommend
Highly
it,
recommend it.
highly recommend it,
300 to 600 bucks.
depending on who you get to do it.
And a lot of times with their excavators, they're not doing like an official perk test per se. They're just going out there and digging a hole.
Yeah,
seeing
but what
how
I
far-
mean.
But even so, it's better than nothing.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
I think you need 9 feet.
And you gotta make sure that they fill that hole back in, because if that hole fills up with water and you got a kid next door and he falls
You're in
there,
trouble.
You know,
I think the contract, the land contract says that if you dig a test hole, it has to be returned. to
I
them.
always reiterate it.
Yeah.
I always
think that's a
reiterate
good
it.
thing to do.
How big is this test?
It's a excavator.
Excavator,
Typically,
you know, a
they-
bucket full,
It's not good.
a bucket.
You know, bucket's what? How wide's the
Yeah,
bucket?
well, yeah, it's that thing.
How wide's the bucket? 3 feet? 4
Yeah,
feet?
probably.
Does that answer your question
With-
about how like the lots are purchased?
Well, you always said that it depends in this business.
I know.
I understand
It
It
stinks.
really isn't a perfect scenario,
So it depends.
because you can always think of a way that you messed up.
Well, the perfect scenario is to buy a lot in a developed subdivision
No, you did.
With the
'cause
community
what-
well.
with a community well.
But you want to make sure it's documented, Yeah. community well and stuff.
But because here's the thing about the extraneous, when I asked you that question, just hearing the nightmare
Is
stories.
this mine?
That's
mine.
No, that's yours.
about what- You know what I mean?
Yeah,
what
I
stinks.
need a new
That's
case.
what-
Mine- I know, mine looks
Well, the
exactly-
good thing
that's
too
what-
is that when the nightmare stories are not your own. Like-
Yeah.
Like, oh, I heard about, I know to do this because Devin's not there.
Then it makes you so gun shy to go do like anything.
Well, you know,
I just
and
think you have to be like not in a hurry to get them into contract. Like, there's just a lot of research that needs to be done along the way. Dennis?
oh, I was gonna say something. Regarding like this new construction, I told her buyer, I said, I would recommend that you go out and knock on doors. Find out what their water quality is, see if you're gonna need a filtration system. I said, the water can be totally black, no E. coli or coliform, and it's potable. You can drink that.
Well, and the ranch is a perfect example. You need water softeners because it's such hard water and it's on city water and you're like, what the heck? But it's nasty water.
Let me tell you what I tell every single person who's around a well, who's water. I've lived in the valley 41 years. I've never lived in a house that didn't have a water system or need a water system. Every single one. I'm on city water now. I have one now. And I know when I don't have salt because I can tell. And my filter needs cleaned, I know. So every single house needs something.
We
And
have a
the period
rental on
and
city
the-
water and they think because the water is hard, that it's harming their tap. And I was like.
Buy them bottled
"No,
water
it's
then.
drinkable, it does certain stuff.
It's gonna, and it's gonna ruin your appliances. or
It will.
whatever.
That'll do.
Okay, a couple more questions. Upgrades. If you upgrade something, if you have a cabinet allowance that's 10 grand and you spend 18, how does that get paid?
Out of pocket.
Out of pocket.
I mean, this is a question, really.
But it's,
You add it to the sales price
If the
or?
appraisal's in, yeah, you can. But typically the builder, when he gets the pre-construction appraisal, that's gonna be the asking price for the
Right.
house.
right.
So there's
Sure.
really no room to play. But
Right.
like the one that we're doing now, it's financed through Christine. He's not doing a pre-construction appraisal. Is it going to appraise? I mean, we've run into a deficiency, so we're trying to figure out how we can absorb that without having to increase the price and taking the buyer out of.
Their
Company
comfort
range.
zone.
Okay. These are good conversations to have. Some builders allow you to put it on the sales price to a certain point. Some say everything is paid directly out of pocket to the vendor.
Mhm.
Some say it's paid directly out of pocket to the builder.
Another thing too, if you've got a client and they're a veteran, they're gonna get that discount at Lowe's.
Right.
I've had a builder, a pretty predominant builder, tell me, or tell my client, you don't get that veterans discount. I take it as my builder discount. My client said,
What?
I'm the veteran. I should be getting the discount. He said, I'm the general and that's how I work it. I get the discount, you don't.
I think I've heard this argument before.
So basically that your client would be paying full price, the builder gets a discount and makes some profit in there. Is that what you're saying?
And be very careful with these builders because, okay, so I want a table like this in my house for a bar, okay? You know, and it's negotiated in the price that I'm gonna get one half the size. So how much is it for the upgrade? $1,000. $1,000. Well, can I see the bid? No, there is no bid. It's $1,000. Or I want this sink instead of that sink. Well, that's $500 upgrade. Well, what's your allowance? $100 for a sink. Well, I want that one. And you're telling me it's $500 upgrade? I can get that same sink over at Lowe's for $250. And you're gonna tell me it's a $500 upgrade?
So we've done that and we just say, go pick it up and deliver it and we'll put it in for 200.
They're using,
I mean-
say, Ferguson, and Ferguson does cost more because it has higher end. products.
Right,
Correct.
Or
right,
they're- So that's just it. Our supplier, that sink is, $500. Now, yeah, you can get a lesser model, but we're not gonna warranty.
That's what you hear from the builder. We're not warranting that if you get it from X,
You know
Y,
what?
Z.
I bought my duplex and I gutted it. We redid the whole thing. And that's what he was trying to get me to go to Ferguson's. And I'm going, I can't afford to shop in there. I'm gonna run out of money real quick. He said, well, we won't warranty it because I found my tubs that I wanted over at Lowe's and we ended up buying the tubs. We don't have an issue with nothing.
Right.
You know, we bought our vanities at Home Depot.
I think
We
they're
bought our-
worried about that
Jeremiah,
year.
What's your say so on this? No, I mean, just like, is there real, I'm curious about your plumber. I know you don't like to plumber hat, but like, is there really a difference?
Yeah, is there a
between
difference?
Lowe's and Ferguson for Keller or whatever?
Well, who sells the same products as Ferguson? I don't even know what. you're talking about.
Then how
I
come,
remember one building one time.
Lowe's
I can't-
sells Kohler, Ferguson sells Kohler. What's-
I've been told that
what are we
there's
talking about?
plastic in
No,
Lowe's
that's what I've been
parts.
told too, like the
and there's
inside parts
metal.
are different. That's what I've been.
And
that
there's
Lowe's are
metal.
plastic and Ferguson's are metal?
But you know what?
Like the basic model that Ferguson's is the higher end of the same product.
Well, yeah, if you're building a house in Sky Ranch, then go to Ferguson's because you can afford it.
Yeah.
This is that way with like lawnmowers. You buy lawnmower blue, you know, then you buy whatever at brand store, it's a different product.
Same model?
Same thing.
But it
The
still
metal- the
works.
metal's lighter because it's shipped and it's, thinner, so
I don't know. That
Well,
answers-
I always liken that to shoes. They used to
I've
say,
heard that forever.
Me
I
too.
remember somebody telling
Me
the
too.
Exact same thing Janice said. The inside of it is different.
But Devin, I've heard the same argument. with different
Only the
things.
part you can't see
The
is
builder
different.
gets better service from Ferguson.
That's
And that's
true.
why he does it, because he can just go back there and say, "Oh,
Or like warranty issues,
That's true.
whatever.
There is some truth to that.
that's the-
I can see that.
But as far as the product goes, that's bullshit. You got the product number from a manufacturer. There's no difference from that product being at Ferguson or at Lowe's. I'm sorry.
so if we got two sinks, we could take them apart, the little handle things, we could take them apart and they'd be the same.
You just know you're not going to. so that's-
Well, what if we did? I might do it.
Let's do it.
I think I'm gonna.
We should be like on like Mythbusters.
I think I'm gonna.
There's
I mean-
no plastic inside this.
I'm gonna go in Carolyn's office, she's gonna be sitting on the floor with all your
You know, I bought a hall spec.
It's not that much. I mean, they're
in
not that,
Settlers Bay.
yeah.
And my faucets for my shower, you know, one thing, I was taking a bath one day and I went to turn the damn thing off and I almost
Pulled
took
it
the whole
off.
handle off.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get the water to shut off.
One too many glasses
It was
of
not
wine.
from
I didn't
Lowe's.
know. No, I wasn't drinking then.
Yeah, you should have got the Ferguson handle.
But I had a plumber come out and he said, oh, this faucet's a piece of shit. And it's behind the wall. I mean, it's a one-piece tub thing. you
Yeah.
know? So how are we gonna fix this piece of shit without tearing my house apart? He managed,
They have
to-
tools.
he managed to get in there and fix it, but
All right, okay. So the other questions are where they make their selections. What's a good question to ask? What kind of energy rating can we expect? I would hope that we're in a place that where every builder is doing an energy rating, but don't assume.
Oh, there's some that
Do not
don't.
assume that.
oh, another
because
thing,
maybe it's not important to your client because they're not getting a loan that needs the energy rating, but it's gonna be important when they go to sell.
we sold that house over on Lydia. The builder did not intend on paving the driveway. Here we're in a $400,000 neighborhood, paved streets, views, you know, they're selling this house for $425. and we're not gonna pave the driveway, came an issue. Told the builder, I said, you know, if you don't want to pave the driveway, then we need to rethink our relationship. Because for that kind of money, I would expect to pave driveway.
At least X amount of feet, like it should be on their standard features on what they're gonna give you.
Mhm. But it says in their standard features, depending on CCNRs, what the CCNRs dictate.
Yeah.
Well, and if it's a spec, then you would have a certain square, like footage, because the builder placed the location of the house.
Right.
You know, it's not
Right.
like a pre-sold where you go out there and the guy said, I want it all the way to the back of the lot. Well, that's on.
Well, we're not
that's
doing
your
that.
driveway costs, it's on that, You know? How do I get paid? I'm not really sure how you would ask this question, but I also would also not assume, because there is a builder that is in our market, I don't think he's really building anymore, that loves to cut commissions.
Oh,
at the
yeah.
end Of the transaction.
Who's that?
Mm-mm.
Oh,
Yeah, I was gonna say, we used to have an office there.
And, so I think it's just really good to just be clear about that from the beginning. Some builders, that have their own contracts deal with this, like right in their contract, but our MLS contract does not. So, one thing you could do is just send over like a brokerage fee, disclosure with your offer and have them sign it. You could just be really upfront about it, like how do you work commission? I just, because it is not, you cannot hold a builder to a commission if it's not listed in the MLS.
Right, and so you might make an offer on a to be built that's not in MLS yet.
Well, if it's in the MLS, that's different.
Well, I'm
The
just
MLS,
saying that
they
you,
have to have
Dictated.
their
Yeah.
offer compensation in there.
Yeah.
But if it's not, you call the builder and you're like, hey, I see this to be built, and you're like, that's already sold, but we have a lot.
This here.
over here.
And you write it up.
You need to be having some sort of documentation.
And you don't like to see that disclosed in the additional terms and conditions, right? Any kind
No,
of
because the
commission.
contract's really between the builder and the buyer.
so we had this situation come up. Jessica had just pended a couple of properties and and the buyer was paying her fee.
Buyer's paying your fee.
And so she said, what do I do? How do I address this? It wouldn't be a listing contract because we're not putting it on the market. It could be a quote unquote one-time listing for that buyer. But I told her, I said, use the for sale by owner commission agreement.
oh, that's a great
And
idea.
dictate that the buyer is paying the fee on the contract,
Right.
you know, because it talks about the AREC, it talks about what commissions being paid. There's 3 items on there and I don't remember the third one.
It ended up not applying because it's vacant land, so it ended up by just having AREC from the seller and a buyer representation agreement stating that the buyer's paying the commission.
I mean, you could use that brokerage, fee disclosure statement. It's not the brokerage fee disclosure. The brokerage fee disclosure statement, I think is what it's called. But it basically goes like, who the parties are involved, what commission they are, it's in place. Any other questions you can think of, or things that maybe we haven't touched on from, in terms of new construction and representing buyers? Anyone have like a horrific story that you wish you would have done with this, or you wish you would have?
What should we? What number, square foot numbers should we be qualifying part of the families? You know, a lot of people they have this grandiose idea of selling a house and go build this custom 3,000 square foot home for $300,000.
Yeah, that ain't
Are
happening.
we using like 200?
216. I did the math and I'm thinking if you take the higher end and the lower end, you were coming in at about 216 is the average.
And I saw 240 on a couple of.
I
them.
Yeah, we
know.
have like multiple subdivisions that are certain institutions.
Yeah, but 216 is a
I mean,
good
they're-
one.
Depending on where
they're
you're located.
$85,000 lots.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, so model houses, are we looking at usually 50? 50 grand a lot?
I wish.
They're
so
going
like
up.
The old builder I used to represent, you would not include lot allowance in his pricing. He
Gotcha.
said, my price is this plus whatever land you pick.
Gotcha.
That's
I
happening.
wish that more people would do that. I think.
It makes the
but-
most sense.
but
It
you know what?
does.
He actually struggled a little bit with it because it was so different than everybody else's.
Yeah,
Like the way everybody
yeah,
else
you get
did
shocked
it.
and they would understand that.
Yeah, they wouldn't understand, but it's so much clearer that, okay, your house is 300 and then tack on whatever the lot cost.
Whatever you want.
Yeah, I mean, because then it's like them, that's the issue of going over. Well, that's because you're trying to buy $150,000 lot. Not, it's $75,000 lot or whatever. So, like our lot, I can't get, like, Igor's mine really around it, but our lot allows us to do that.
And
And you're
Hall
lucky
taught
if
us
you can
that.
find one.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
you
yeah.
always would say, okay, this is a $250,000 house. What's the lot allowance? And they'd say 30. So you knew if you went shopping, I mean, I think that.
Or you
we're
could pick
past-
one of ours.
Right.
You know, and another thing to pay attention to is when you're doing new construction, I would definitely recommend having your client do a home inspection. Absolutely. I did one, I sold one of, what's his name? The builder up there on Angela that had like 5 houses. Yeah, I sold one of his over there on Jack Nicholas. It was mold in the crawl space. And
Because they
said-
did it when it was
They
raining.
said, oh, we're just gonna paint over it with kills. And I said, no, you're not.
No, Vicky Circle. That's not a good thing to do.
Yeah.
Remember Vicky Circle in the mold?
So did they vent it to?
They went in and replaced it and they actually had, what's his name? Patrick. Advanced Look Construction, no, not, what is he? Advanced.
He's
Advanced
the
Look.
mold guy.
He's the mold guy. You know, you could have white environmental out of Eagle River and Anchorage, but they're real expensive. You can
Kelly
have,
Allen does it too.
okay, you could have Patrick go and test.
I trust Patrick.
I don't remember, it's been like 4 years, but they've done what they did. So I gotta go.
Solution is don't, no. I'm serious. It's not as scary. I
It's
just-
not as scary
you
as
just have
we,
to be informed. Thank you guys for.
Long story.
I'll be back to the office after.
Have a good day, everybody.
We're done.
Oh, how's the big man search going? Old deal, lady.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I don't think it's as scary. It's kind of like when everyone was afraid to ride a HUD. I like people being scared. Good. That's more for me.